everyone. We are the group working with the Noridian Mutual Health Insurance. We were the automatic portal verification team. I'm Nicholas.
I'm Riley.
I'm Jacob.
And I'm Mitch.
So the company overview, Noridian Mutual Insurance Company is a healthcare insurer. They have been providing health insurance for over 50 years in all 50 states, and in 28 of those states they have government contracts as well. We have been working with a team at Noridian who specializes in robotic automation, which is used to increase efficiency throughout the company. So what Noridian needed is they wanted us to check if we were able to make a robotic solution to verify various functions on their user portal site, such as various inquiries that a person who is subscribed to them might want to check out various statuses on different forms they've submitted and such. They also requested that along with this robotic solution, it'll log what the robot does and send an email of that report and what it discovered from verifying those functions on the website. So what we ended up doing is we developed a robotic program using the Pega robotic plugin for Visual Studio, which was provided by Noridian, and it will go through the website and verify various features on the website. At the end of the verification process, it will send out an email of the report of what it found. So this could be various things. If it was successful, it will say that it was a success. However, there could be errors where, like, if the feature is down, there might be no results that show up, there might be faulty results that show up. So it needs to log that and say what happened with all those features. And then these robots were intended to be a framework that would continue to be worked on post-delivery by being implemented for the actual user portal site instead of the mock portal website that we developed.
So initially our scheduling was to develop the website alongside the robot so that when we would get a page finished, we could have the robot develop for it to get all of the verifications through that page would require, and then we could move on very much one at a time, go through the list. However, we could not gain access to the Pega plugin because it requires paid access through the business, so we had to gain access through Noridian, which was a chain of communication to get that. We ultimately did not get the Pega plugin until a couple days before the midterm presentation, meaning that we had to focus entirely on the website until that point, and then maybe have some training on Pega. Then once we had it, we could move on from there. Since then, we have finished the mock portal website and the robots that will do the verification functions on all of them.
All right, so since we are using the laptop that actually has the robot on it, we're going to do things a little differently. For our demonstration, you're getting 2 for the price of 1. So I am going to enter Internet Explorer, which is what our site works on best, which is scary, I know. And I'm going to set a timer and try to verify one single page, and we'll see how long that takes me. And then we'll compare that to the robot's time. So, ready, set, go. So we're going to be doing speedrun today, no. We're going to be entering the information of one Bob Robertson, who must have the easiest time entering in his information possible, considering that it is all 1, 2, 3, 4, and variations thereof. It's program A. So all of these, there are, for most of the pages, there are 4 different, there are 4 different programs that you can do. So not only would we have to verify this page, we would have to verify it 4 different times with different people's information. So this is a verification. The result is found. That took me 43 seconds. Granted, I was also talking over it. So if we go to the robot, stop that. If we go to the robot and we reset, the robot will take about 10 seconds to build. I saved all before, so this should hopefully run a little faster. Go. Oh, wait. The robot has problems when you have 2 instances of Internet Explorer open. There we go. Okay. For real go this time. So once the robot starts, while the robot runs, I will give an overview of how it works. What it does is it's basically a chain of commands. So you start off by interrogating a website which receives allows you to check out all of the website's objects and IDs. So like every text box, every button you can look at, and you can both manipulate this data, and you can also do certain methods. That was done in about 20 seconds to do every single page. That was about, I believe the count was 45 pages in 20 seconds. So compared to the 40 seconds it took me to do one page, I think the robot's got me beat. So how the robot works is that it has a variety of methods to manipulate data or enact methods on certain things, so like clicking on a button or navigating to a different URL. And you put these instructions in ahead of time, and then it will perform these instructions at near instantaneous speed when run. So this robot just goes through every single page, puts in all the data that I put in, had to make sure there was no typos, and then at the end it will report that it's done and generate a report, which I can show off here. Actually, we have an excerpt here. It'll generate a report on the desktop. This is an excerpt from it, so it'll say, it's formatted to say if something is right. So claim status inquiry, that was the first page that it did. If it's okay, it'll say it's fine and move on. If it doesn't find the data it's looking for, it will throw an error and tell you that it wasn't found, which can give me an idea something's not right. So for instance, claim status program JADME was not found, so that would tell you, okay, something's wrong with either our data, maybe there was a typo, or the person who was the piece of data that was created for the JADME program is wrong, or wasn't created, or wasn't found, or it's something wrong with website itself. It's not identifying correctly, or it's not loading, or something is taking too long to load, something along those lines. So it'll go through for every program check, and then it will say when the automation ended, and it will tell you what needs to be fixed. So
Yeah, we had a variety of issues as we were developing. Some were rather fun, others were JavaScript having fun. So first problem we encountered is we could not access Noridian's actual web portal for some obvious security reasons, such as social security numbers. So what we had at best to do was attempt to mimic the functionality of the website by creating our own portal so that it could run alongside and help be a proof of concept. From there, again, we couldn't gain access to the Pega Robotic plugin until midterms. There were some issues in there, such as after a certain point we lost access to the training. From there, there's some features on the website. We found out that Pega can be rather interesting depending on how the website is developed. For example, if you create the button in the results page to return you to the main menu using one method, instead of going back to the original page, it would create an entirely new page that would be a child of the results page, and Pega would interpret the exact same page differently depending on that. However, if you use a different function to create that button, it would have the expected functionality of just taking you back. So whether or not that was JavaScript being fun or Pega being fun, I don't know, but my money's on JavaScript. From there, you're going to like this one. We spent a couple hours determining how we would transfer information over on the web page to the other pages, decided cookies would be simplest. Spent a couple hours wondering why nothing was working when everything checked out, everything was fine. Turns out at some point recently, Google Chrome updated to no longer allow you to use cookies on local HTML files. So when we were testing, we couldn't really use Chrome without dealing with security and verifying these files. Ironically, because Internet Explorer was old and decrepit enough, that worked instead. So it was easier to test locally on Internet Explorer than it was for Google Chrome. For the reports itself, we could not set up an SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol server, to generate a report and send it to the people who ought to know if the system's down or up. Once again, for security purposes, ultimately we had decided, and we had come to a satisfactory conclusion of generating just a basic text file that would include the results of the verifications.
As a fun aside, this is the first time that I've used Chrome to install Internet Explorer, not the other way around.
Yeah, so then some velocity. After the midterm presentation, we got access to Pega, like has been said. We were able to finish up the mock web portal and get all of the user stories completed. The one thing that we weren't able to do is have the robot make a email to send out for the report. So instead, we just have the report saved to the desktop, which seems to work just fine too.
As a postmortem, projects has been a good lesson in working around constraints and making sure work is always being done on something, even if it's not the prime deliverable or what is the main goal of the project. It's been a good lesson in catching up from unavoidable delays. As mentioned, because of a chain of communications and some interesting things on Pega's side, we did not gain access to the tools themselves until I think a couple days before our midterm presentation. So obviously that cut down on a lot of potential time to develop the robot with our hands on it instead of theory crafting essentially and looking at the documentation and thinking, I think this is how it's going to work. Because as it turns out, if you just look at the documentation for something and then try to go in for a couple weeks and then try to go into the thing, it's not going to work out how you thought. It's always going to work out how you thought it was going to work out, which was also not helped by some of our documentation being a little out of date. So, if we were to restart this project, we would definitely, realize going in to prioritize certain things, especially with the website, make sure that was up and running as soon as possible. And then knowing that certain things have interesting interactions, like the fact that a button could create a child of the page it was clicked on instead of going back to the page itself, which would, as mentioned, then mess with our robot. We would also, learn. We actually were proud of our communication, though. We kept in fairly constant contact with our supervisor and our mentors who helped us out and told us, we're trying to get this, and, told us that, they sent out the reply and they were waiting on it and helping us whether they could. They helped fix quite a few interesting bugs and little features and such with the Pega robot, which was very, very helpful. Gave us a lot of good advice and were very, very easy to find and communicate with and very easy to get help from. And, from their own experience, they've been working with Pega Robotics for a lot longer than we have, so that helped a lot to be able to kind of pick their brains when we finally got access and we needed to kind of hurry up, especially since that was over spring break. But we feel that this project went over very well, especially with the constraints we had and the lesson time that we had to work on certain things. We felt that it turned out very well, that we worked to get well together as a team. We all communicate between each other and our mentors in a efficient way, and that we have done a pretty good job.
Yeah, so then some next steps would be for Noridian, their next step would be to take our robot that we've created and implement it into their system so that they can use it on their actual web portal. And then also the mock website is all open source, so if Noridian wants to continue to continue on the portal verification or anything that they would need to use the mock website for, they could continue to do that next year for future projects too, which would eliminate some of that time, allow them to get started on some other projects too. So.
Are there any questions?
I'll ask the question I always get asked.
Hmm.
So what's the difference between a robot and just writing a VB script?
Robot is a bit more accessible. It is low to no code. This particular example pretty much had no code except knowing what system.io.file is. It's drag and drop. It's a bit more accessible. It makes a bit more sense. It's a lot less abstract. You can see what your robot is doing. If you enter in breakpoints for debugging, you can see it'll give you a call stack not only in like a text form, but it'll also like highlight essentially the lines that show, okay, we've gone through here and we're to here. So it's a bit more accessible for people who are maybe not as technologically oriented to use, even if they have, if they need to automatically verify a website or perform some other analysis or statistics related work. It's a lot easier for them to just get into that with a learning base instead of having to learn the basics of programming, learn to write a script, learn how to run scripts, that kind of thing. It's much more self-contained and a bit more user-friendly, I feel, to start out with. Maybe it's just not as powerful. Eventually it would be good for them to learn to script because there are some things that the robot may not be able to do as well, or it may be slightly less efficient than just writing a script or writing something in VB.
You had, I'll call it a workaround with the IE solution. When this goes into the real system, what's the implication of that?
Well, the system needs to operate on Internet Explorer. That's how the portal will operate, and that was always one of the main goals.
I'm not sure if they allow that anymore with all, I don't know if you have Internet Explorer available or that's supported there.
So they have been using the robot for other things that they've done, and they always open it up in Internet Explorer. So that was actually on the initial slides before anyone got their projects, is that it needs to work with Internet Explorer, because that is what they are using for their robots that they have developed before.
We just wanted to test with Chrome because we felt it might be a little faster, and it's obviously our default browsers, and we didn't want to go and download Internet Explorer, but it was requested that this specifically work with Internet Explorer, not Edge or anything else, just the latest version of Internet Explorer, which they do use. So.
And that was just an issue locally. It does work. The website works normally on Chrome now when it's hosted through GitHub. It was just locally when we were developing the pages, trying to test them locally, that it was causing issues with the cookies.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock, If you have your code all written, it's good, it's not working, then it pops up, hey, maybe it's just the local problem. You go, you get it pushed, the website updates, and it works up there. That was a frustrating 2 hours.
That was a really fun 2 hours to sit there, and then one of us searched, fun 2 or 3 hours, and then one of us just did a random search, why is this not working on Chrome? First answer is, Chrome, when local hosting Chrome doesn't allow cookies, and we're like, well, there's that case solved. So, again, the only time any of us have used Chrome to download Internet Explorer instead of using Internet Explorer to download Chrome.
So for the input mixture, where you got the input result? I mean, you have a dictionary or something like the robot to input on the website and verify.
Yeah, so a lot of the information, as far as the robot goes, when it's drawing, it's drag and drop, so it's just, hey, this text box, add this string or this number into it. On the website end, to avoid needing to deal with more security issues, such as trying to load in files, it stores everything in a base script and just JSON objects. So when it just performs that verification, it just consults its list of objects to see if it's contained and moves on from there.
So any thought for the verifying the structural injection?
I don't think injection is ever a problem. The primary focus of the website was to be minimum viable product functioning, be able to return results or not. That's why it's not that pretty either. I'm not a CSS expert.
Yeah, the website was mostly just to get around the fact that we didn't have access to the user portal. So it didn't need the entire functionality or security necessarily.
Yeah, there's an entire developed, secure website web zone that they have access to that we could not because it's so secure and it has, as mentioned, people's social security numbers, which for some reason they don't like other people seeing, especially when they're not part of a company. So this was just a workaround so that the mock portal was really just so we would have something to test our robots on. So it was the mock portal in and of itself is not necessarily deliverable, although it is available. If Noridian were to do future projects involving the website, they could definitely use this as a simplified base of what their website would be structured as.
Did you ever talk to them about, like you had your 43 seconds versus 20 seconds to do 45 of them? Did you ever get a feel for how much of this kind of work is being done right
Yeah, towards the end, the person doing the verifications, she had actually gotten it down to 20 minutes a day. However, if she's not there anymore, then someone else has to take it up, and they're not going to take 20 minutes. So even if that person were to get it down to 5 minutes a day, this is still half a minute. On a near instantaneous website, I imagine it'd take maybe 2 minutes if you're waiting for the database interactions. But it's still faster, and it doesn't require a person actively sitting there doing it instead.
Because it's a lot of tedious work, a lot of just busy work, just typing in the numbers. You might type something wrong sometimes. So it opens up the possibility for those people to then do more mental work, more things that keep them more awake or things that are more interesting to them. So that's also a benefit of using a robot for these simpler tasks or mundane tasks.
And as mentioned, with the possibility of typos, if you put the data in the robot in correctly the first time, you will not have typos. Unlike with a human, where especially when you're dealing with strings of numbers that are, say, just the numbers 1 through 9, it might become so ingrained in your memory that it might look right, but you might have had an extra 4 or something, and then obviously it'll return back that it didn't find what you were looking for. So that could turn into some false negatives, some search results that weren't actually wrong. It was just a typo.
So if there is like missing data for a particular field, would it reject the whole form, or would it just continue working on whatever's available?
It would work off what's available. If you don't have everything in that it needs, every bit of data that it needs, it will not return a result, but the robot will simply mark that down as result not returned and then keep working.
now? Thank you.
Thank you.